Thank you, Divya, and good morning. So nice to be here. Again, such a great moment for incredibly interesting conversations, and I think we're going to have one this morning with Prabal. And actually, I could spend the next 25 minutes talking through Prabal's extensive experience, but I'm sure all of you are well aware of his many initiatives, but we're going to talk about, we're going to start with the latest one, which is quite exciting to talk about his newest project, which comes out next year, in fact. So we're getting one of the sort of preview interviews with Prabal. And, you know, obviously we all know your amazing fashion collections, which we're going to come to. But next May, Prabal is publishing his first book called Walk Like a Girl. And you've actually said recently that it was one of the scariest things you've had to do. And given this is a result of like the culmination of so many incredibly interesting years, why was the book, the most scary thing you've had to do?
Before I start, I just want to acknowledge quickly everyone who brought me here, Desiree and her team and everyone. So thank you very much. It is incredible to see the community of creatives and leaders come together. And good morning to you all. And just to, Caroline and I have known each other for such a long time, so it's just to be serious and have this conversation a tad bit difficult for me, so I'm trying to not look at your face, okay, just so that you know.
Don't look at me, don't look at me.
Yeah.
Look at these lovely people.
So basically, the book, you know, as a creative person, as a fashion designer, my language of choice, or like, you know, the storytelling has always been through clothes, shows, and little aids of hair and makeup and music, but overall fashion shows. That's how I've told my story. So when I sat down to write this literary memoir almost 7 years ago, I didn't consider myself a writer. I consider myself a storyteller for sure. And so when I sat down, I had all these stories, all these ideas, and it was simply scary because I wanted to make sure that the story that I told was not at the cost of someone else's demise or their character's demise. I didn't want to write a salacious story. I wanted the story and the book and the literary memoir to have some grace. And it was very incredible that, you know, we're living in this world where we're easily dismissive of people, different cultures, you know. And I wanted to make sure that the story that I told kind of encompassed everyone, because the story is about being seen, being heard, and hence feeling free to be yourself. So,
and I think one of the defining, I would say, characteristics of your career, as I know it, has been around bringing people along with you, actually. But how did the vulnerability of this process of writing the book actually compare to, you know, twice a year unveiling a collection with this big 15-minute moment?
If you're lucky, 15
minutes. If you're lucky, 15
minutes if
maybe
you're lucky.
12 minutes if you're not so lucky, 11 minutes if it's really fast.
8 minutes if you're done your job really well.
Right,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a very different thing to that sort of big moment and unveiling these collections, even though I know that you've had all fashion designers now have to constantly put out.
Yeah.
But how is this very different and very vulnerable too?
Just a quick correction. It is between my ready-to-wear line and atelier collection. That's like 8 collections a year. Okay, just so that you know.
Good, not 2.
And
8
yeah,
collections.
so the thing here was, it was really writing. Whenever, you know, I'm in an industry. I've always been in an industry. With the aid and with the clothes and with the help from women and the models and all these women that I dress, I've been able to tell my story. Now, having to pen it down, to really tap into things that I've been through, that we all have been through. Like, it was challenging simply because how much of it do I reveal, you know? And so I decided so my mom and my editors, they were just like, if you're going to tell a story, tell it honestly. So I just went for it. So yeah. And does the gentleman want to come here? I'm not just kidding. Okay. Yeah.
And for you, maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about actually some of the focuses, the chapters in the book, so we get a little preview of that.
Yeah. So the book is basically about a story, an immigrant story coming to America, a queer guy and who comes to America with the idea of American dreams and the complexities around it. It's about race, it's about politics, it's about fashion, it's about glamour, it's about identity, and it is. At the end of the day, it is a love story between a son and a mother. So that's what it is. It's a literary memoir. So it comes out on May 13th. So I hope you all will get it.
Pre-order now.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Pre-order, yeah.
Well, let's start then looking a little bit around when you first moved to America to start your studies, actually. Or after your studies, in fact.
Yes. No, I did go to school at Parsons.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you actually view the American fashion landscape back then? And what did you want to either contribute or change?
I was a little kid back home in Nepal, just so that you know, when I decided to become a fashion designer to study, there are a lot of people back home in Nepal, they said, oh, that's a good hobby, but what do you really want to do? So that was a general concept there. Now, cut to 15 years later, I go back to Nepal, and there's a whole thriving fashion industry, so it's really great to see that, right? I grew up as a kid, quite a loner, and reading magazines of Vogue, looking at my mom's cosmetics of like Yves Saint Laurent, Dior, perfume, and then going through watching Elsa Clench's CNN, style and style with Elsa Clench, and just watching Yves Saint Laurent, Bill Blass, Romeo Gilly, Christian Lacroix, and just like this, and I traveled everywhere, like into Europe, everywhere, but never to America, and fashion really allowed me to escape my reality, which at that point was pretty challenging because of I went to an old boys boarding school. I was a little different than most of the boys, so which leads to being othered. But so when I wanted to come to America simply because I, believe it or not, I'd watched all those shows. I was in India and I was about to launch something there. Then I came back home and I happened to turn on television, which I normally in my house we were not encouraged to watch television. We read a lot, and I turned on the television and I saw this black woman on television talking about dreams, and it was Oprah Winfrey, and I had no idea who she was, and I watched her show more, and I remember after the third show, which was about living your dreams, I turned to my sister, who's my best friend, she's an elder sister, and I said, I want to go to America, give it a shot there, and see what happens. If I fail, it's at least I took that risk. So I applied to Parsons, and I got through, and so I always say, Oprah Winfrey is the reason why I went to America, and I mean, that was the catalyst.
Fully manifested, yeah.
Fully manifested, and cut to a couple of years later, I was able to dress her, meet her, so that was pretty like a full circle moment. But
and when you got to America,
yes,
was the reality the same as what you had sort of seen or dreamt of?
It was more than that. It was, I landed in New York, and New York is a lot different than the rest of America, and we all know that. When I landed in New York, I remember rolling down the window of that cabin, looking up to the skyscraper, and I immediately called up my mother and I said, I finally feel home. I knew it immediately. What America does really well is it's a great PR machine. It's like they'll tell you it is an amazing country, which all of it is true. The freedom of speech, everything is there. But it is like, and I always say it's the greatest lover you can have. America, New York is the greatest lover you can have, but every lover has flaws. There's no doubt about it, right? There's something that is off-key. So there's challenges about America, and I always say I was made aware of my race. I didn't know about my race or made aware till I came to America, And race is such an important part of the cultural thing, so I had to navigate that. And in the fashion industry in itself, that existed. And that still exists. When I started talking about identity, when I started talking about belonging, when I started talking about everything, visibility, inclusivity, I remember, this was like 15, 20 years ago, I remember people thinking, you're crazy, you're a fashion designer, what are you talking about? But what I believed is the interconnectedness between fashion, culture, the way we live, because we're not isolated. We derive from the culture, we derive from the people, we derive from the world, so it affects our work. And our work also, we employ people, we generate, contribute to the economy. So all of that was a wake-up call for me, but one really excited me simply because that meant that I could have my own way of charting my path. Oftentimes what happens to like most of the designers, and all the new designers, you're bound to get this thing, or you have to do this, you have to do this X, Y, Z in order to make it. What that race, the lack of identity, lack of belonging, all that stuff, that challenges came my way, it allowed me to make my own path. It really gave me the freedom to be like, you know what, I want to do it this way.
So give us an example of how that came through, or
without landing myself in trouble.
Without landing yourself into any trouble, please, Prabal.
I would say what I did was, there are two things I will say in America or in the rest of the world. Like it or not, we are still living in a world where the dictates of the taste is defined by the majority, and by majority, you know what I mean. I think what I did was very crucial for me was to understand the playbook set by the majority of like how to, like, let's say you launch a collection, you have to be in a certain magazine to get a story, a certain store, certain thing. Like for instance, in order to make it in America, at that time was, okay, you launch a collection, your first story is in Vogue, and then you get to, like, let's say Barney's, and then that was the stories, right? Barney's and Bergdorf.
It was like a certain way
a certain way of doing
success.
Yeah. So my first collection was on cover of Women's Wear Daily, but Vogue didn't want to do the story at that time. So my first story was with Harper's Bazaar. My first story was Bloomingdale's, nobody else, because it was deep in recession when I launched it. So immediately, not that I didn't look at it as like, oh, they don't like me. I looked at it as like, I need to do myself better. And I also it opened my windows to other possibilities, other ways of avenues of storytelling and approaching. And I really freed me for needing that validation, but cut to all these, like, what now, 14 years later, all those people, like, from Bergdorf, Vogue, Saks, have been my home for, like, without them, I wouldn't be here, so yeah.
But I think that's an incredibly important lesson, actually, that there is not one path. There are so many paths, and Prabal is sort of the proof that there is no one path, and that you can do it your own way.
Absolutely, and I think what was really early on, what I understood was the idea of success to us, is so dictated by the majority. Like, you have to be XYZ billion-dollar company, you have to have this many stores, you have to have a name on a building of your, it all doesn't matter. What really defines is, what is your definition of success? That is the key right now. It really isn't who is invested in you, who's not, because for some people, $10 million business is big enough. For some people, 100 million is not big enough. You really have to define. So I always urge every designer, young, new, and old, and my peers, is to really find your own version of success. And to me, my version of success is as simple as, besides doing the runway shows, the impact that you create beyond fashion. What are you going to do?
So we're going to talk about impact, and I think there's a few different sort of aspects to impact with Prabal. And actually, the first one that we want to talk about, which is, funnily enough, the title here.
Yes.
Because after several years, 14 years now, you do sort of embody a very unique position whereby you're the creative director of your own brand. We're going to come to philanthropic initiatives in a bit, but actually you're also now the vice chairman of the council of the CFDA.
Yeah. Yes, it all sounds big and fancy, but
it is big and fancy. It is. It is a lot of work as well.
Yeah.
But I'm curious why, one, you decided to take that role, and two, what kind of impact you want to make in this role.
I can't be this arrogant to say I wanted to take that role. It was simply because, they asked me to join the board a couple of years ago. And as I joined, it was one of the surreal moments I'll never forget. I was on a board meeting. It was Ralph Lauren, Donna Karan, Michael Kors, Tommy Hilfiger, Diane von Furstenberg, all the greats, and just so
the OGs,
and just so that I rarely get starstruck by celebrities. And celebrities to me are great for their talent and everything, but I appreciate that. But I'm rarely starstruck by that. With designers, however, and I'm always like, oh my God, I'm always that fashion geek. unique, right? So I joined, when they asked me to join the board, I willingly said yes because I really am a product of an American dream. I really am a product of incredible support from the industry, whether CFDA, Vogue, like all the retailers, other magazines, everyone has been so crucial to my success. Without them, I would not be part, like, here. Even like when we did this, like starting from the beginning, you, for instance, I remember when we did that party, we had a crazy party in London, just so that you know, and she was there. I have pictures to prove. Anyway, so
We're not going to talk about
we're
that.
not going to talk, but I don't need to digress. But and then when Tom Brown became the chairperson and president, and he was like, he and Stephen Cole was, we'd love for you to be co-vice chair for CFDA. And I think I immediately said yes because I'd been on the board for a while and we'd made incredible changes. We'd made really impactful changes. They asked me to join simply because of the work that I had been doing, not just in fashion and clothes, but beyond that. With my foundation, things that I was talking about, things that are important and crucial to the world. And so once I joined the board, what we're really doing is really doubling down and really dialing up the support system to the New York fashion industry, not just new designers, but the overall ecosystem. Because we are looking at it and reimagining what is the next generation, what is the next 10 years going to look like, and how do we shift that? So I wish I could give you all the details of what we're doing, but it's going to be the whole day, so I don't want to take too much of your time. But needless to say, we are creating a very meaningful, impactful initiatives, yeah.
Well, I think our last panel, which we heard about Shanghai Fashion Week, I think with New York Fashion Week, I think, myself, Kira here, we're on the British Fashion Council board. I think all of us, and especially here now in Hong Kong with Fashion Asia, are all really focused on ensuring sort of a thriving fashion ecosystem globally and in our own local. So I think it's really interesting to hear that you're deeply embedded within CFDA to help make that happen. And another point about impact, I think, is where we can actually talk to Prabal now about the two philanthropic initiatives that you have, one in Nepal,
Yeah.
and the second, Gold House, which I think one of your co-founders, Philip, is somewhere in the room, correct? There he is, well, all the way in the back. But tell us about how also that work has impacted even the way that you think about fashion design today, perhaps.
Which one do you want me to talk about briefly first?
Let's do Gold House.
Okay, so Gold House is the leading ecosystem that unites, invests, and champions Asian Pacific creatives and creators, whether it's in fashion, tech, film, any part of the world. So we've become the leading organization to invest in it also. So the reason was, it was me and a few of my friends, like it was Bing, myself, John M. Chu, we co-founded this right around Crazy Rich Asians when it was coming out. What we realized was that was the first time in the culture, in American culture and pop culture in general, that people who looked like us were the leading people. We were no longer the side character. We were the desired and desirable ones. And we've always felt that. We've always felt that, but it's just like the studios in Hollywood never saw us like that. So when that came, we went full machine behind it to make sure it was a success. That catapulted into this, really all this other stuff that we've been doing it. The reason was, in my field, in other fields from different parts of the world, the organization, all the board members, we have access to the table, right, with the majority. We knew what we could create and we could change. Like for instance, having access to CFDA on that board is an access, right? So simultaneously, what we wanted to do was create our own table. We didn't want to leave this. We wanted to simultaneously build that. We wanted to learn. And what we also knew for a fact was, when the majority realize what we all can bring to the table, they're going to change and they're going to be better. We just knew that. So that was with the Gold House. So we have Gold Gala. We've done insanely amount, for instance, Parasite, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Any films like that comes, we've been behind it for its success. Now that's Gold House. That's just in America, Europe, all over the world. My foundation back home in Nepal, Shiksha Foundation Nepal, I started 10, 11 years ago, it was simply because, in fashion, I'm sure all of you, all the new designers and all designers know that when you launch something, it takes off. All of a sudden, you are the next it thing. The industry is very quick to be like, you are the biggest, you're going to be the star. That's what all I heard. So I called up my brother and my sister. My brother lives in Bombay, my sister's in Nepal, and I said, all this stuff is coming my way. It was the daily, Fashion Week daily. There was a cover with all my collection and my photo, and it said, "A star is born." While it was flattering, it was really dangerous for me because I was going to start believing that hype. So what I immediately did was I called my siblings and I said, I know we wanted to wait for a while before we started a foundation. I have to do this because I have to divert this attention coming to me to something else that really matters. So we started with 12 girls. We've gone to more than 500 children now. These are inmates' children. These are street workers' children. And beyond that, and we like to provide education for female prisoners. And now some of those students have become doctors, engineers, musicians. The first ones, yeah. So thank you very much. The first ones in their villages. And then beyond that, our main focus is on like education in the classroom and beyond. So we've done like Photo Kathmandu. We do like art installation, like everything that you can penetrate in someone's life through culture and art, we are there in the forefront of it. And it's simply because, for me, one thing remains truth is, you can live without art and creativity, you can, but with creativity and art, you're just a different person. You have more empathy, you look at people and understand their differences and realize that it's not that different. We are all very much alike. So that's, yeah. And how it has impacted my collection is, I really look at I've always said this to you, also you from the day one, my goal with my brand was to really create this beautiful, glamorous, enticing clothes that brings me joy, and to bring everyone in my world. And when they come into my world, at the dinner table, we have a substantive conversation beyond fashion. I think there needs to be joy, but there needs to be also depth, Depth and levity are two things that is very important to me. So, it affects that. So for instance, in New York, whenever I do a show, the venue that I choose, people that I work with, the models I cast, it's very intentional, and as a small, independent, self-owned, self-funded brand, I'm very conscious about the freedom of not having to answer to my, let's say, investors. It comes with insane challenges. Everybody knows that. But while I have that freedom, I want to make sure that the work that I do creates an impact, not just in fashion, but culturally. Yeah.
Prabal, I think you really show, and especially this morning, how fashion is so powerful to make impact, that actually, not only is it a huge multi-trillion-dollar business globally, but actually, when you look at the maverick status that Prabal has, I think, in terms of how you build from creating a dress to all these incredible initiatives, that fashion can be so powerful. I literally have 20 more questions to ask you, and 4 minutes countdown on my clock, and you guys have a bunch of questions. So my last question to you, before I take the audience question, is how you've spoken about the importance of heart-led conversations, in contrast to a focus on ruthless ambition. And I love the difference. How has this philosophy guided your career choice and the values of your brand?
I think the very fact that I've stayed independent so far, has been that. The title of my memoir, which is coming out, Walk Like a Girl, is just not literally, it's the idea, the metaphoric idea. I've always believed that, for the longest period of time till now, what we celebrate is this ruthless ambition. Success at any cost, making money at any cost, cost of the environment, cost of people, cost of human dignity. And what I've always believed in the matriarchal energy, because I was raised by a single mother, I've always believed in powerful women and matriarchy. And when I'm talking about matriarchy, I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about the idea and the emotions, which is heart-led emotions. It's like sustainability, accountability, visibility. All these are heart-led conversations. I've always believed in that. And I feel like feminine-leaning ideas, feminine-leaning people are the only way, especially now, when you look at culturally and politically, how brutally heteronormative it is, right? There's one side. The other opposite end of it becomes even more crucial. And so the book is about that. My existence is about that. I've always believed it because I'm simply here because of a mother who believed in my dream. I'm simply here because of women like Anna Wintour, like you, so many women who believed in my dreams and made it come alive. I'm here simply because of the foundation led by women, you know. And I feel like whether it's from Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, Kate Middleton to actresses galore, they have been the biggest champion for me. So it only is fair and the right thing to do that my celebration, my existence is about matriarchy and matriarchal energy. That's pretty much it, yeah.
Well, we celebrate you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So we've got a couple of questions. One, what advice would you give to aspiring designers or students looking to break into the industry today?
I always say this, and I ask myself this also, why are you doing this? If you're doing this to become famous, you shouldn't do it at all. You can become a content creator, you can become a TikToker and all that stuff. Now there are plethoras of ideas. If every moment of your life is something that you wake up and you think about and you want to create, and you feel like this is the language of choice that you want to tell a story. Because let me just put it this way, not just designers, creators are storytellers, and storytellers are healers, right? So that's literally, whether you make a film, whether you write a book, whether you make clothes, our job is that. Our job is, we are a vessel to heal people. I genuinely believe that. So if you feel like what you want to create is everything that you want to do, that you want to break up with the best boyfriend or girlfriend you have, and you still want to do that, then you should do it. And so my advice is have the clarity of that. Once you have that clarity, this is what you want to do, then be like, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to say? Don't worry about the noise. You are going to be told you should do this, you should do that, but what is it that you're going to say? And I feel like it doesn't have to be that different. It doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to, rack your brains around it. Just stay true to yourself. Consistency matters, and good luck. Yeah.
I think we should end there because that's perfect advice. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Prabal.
Of course, yeah.